אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's nice to see all of you in person, like in this in-person thing. Hello. Thank you for the three of you who said hello the second time. It's very nice. For those of you on the live stream, hello. There are people here in the sanctuary. We are thrilled to do that. It's a week. I'm not sure what week are we in? Is this week 3? That's Kenner Mushnick, by the way. He's over there. That's Kenner Mushnick. This is week 3. This is week 3 in person.
Actually 4. It's 4.
It's week 4 in person, just like I said. It's week 4 in person. So we are thrilled that you are here, and we are thrilled and hoping that we'll continue to do this in-person thing over and over and over every week. So thank you for being here. If you don't already have a prayer book, make sure you have one. Make sure you have a correct one. They're blue, and they say Mishkan Tfilah on them. And they're in Hebrew in there, and English in there, and transliteration in there. And so we look forward to praying together and chanting together and reading together and singing together using our prayer book. So we are here. We are happy. It is becoming Shabbat for us very shortly. So hopefully you can shake out the week, whatever the week was, whatever stresses there were in the week, and transition into Shabbat, transition into this peaceful time, these 25 hours of relaxation where everything's better, where the food is better and the wine is better and the rest is better, and we get to be in community together as well. And so we will officially begin Shabbat with lighting Shabbat candles. That's on page 2 and 3. And it's a pleasure to call up some people who are quite familiar to me, my family, Lisa and my 2 boys, Aviv and Lior. They're going to come up here. On page 2 and 3, once again, we'll be doing lighting Shabbat candles, and then going right to page 5 for Kiddush. So we are going to do all of that right now. 2 to start, and then 5. Amen. We're going to continue now with Kiddush. That's on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit Ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh Zecher litziat Mitzrayim Ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta Mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha Be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat Amen.
Whoever that family was, they did a great job. Whew, that was phenomenal. Did you think they were, really?
If I didn't know better, I'd say they were children of a rabbi.
What?
I don't know.
And the Jewish educator who go to a Jewish day school, those poor children. Yeah. We are going to continue now that our Shabbat is officially in, our candles are lit. We have sanctified our day with our kiddush, with some wine. And so now we're going to officially invite our Shabbat bride into our presence with Lecha Dodi, which can be found on page 20. Page 20.
Shamor v'zachor b'diborecha ishmiyanu El HaMeuchad Adonai Echad U'Shemo Echad L'Shemo Tiferet V'Litzila Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala B'nei Shabbat Neka ben la Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor ha'beracha Mirush mikedem nesucha sof maseh b'machshava techila Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat neka ben la Hitoreri kiva orech kumi ori Uri shir dabeiri kevon Adonai alayich nigla Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat neka
stand and face the door to welcome in the Shabbat bride, paragraph number 9.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. Everyone, לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. We continue now with our prayer of transition, our Chatzi Kaddish, transitioning us from Kabbalat Shabbat, from these opening hymns and prayers and psalms that connect us to Shabbat and connect us to the presence of our Shabbat bride, into transitioning us into our evening service. So Chatzi Kaddish can be found on page 26. 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
אמן.
בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן ביומה ואמרו Amen.
In our transition from Chatzi Kaddish, it moves us into Shema V'choteha, Shema and all of her blessings. And the way we start that and the way we transition into our evening service is with the Baruch Hu, with our call to worship, which is on page 28. And together we stand. Once we move through together the Baruch Hu, our call to worship, we begin to examine the three parts that always follow the Baruch Hu, which is the idea of creation, revelation, and redemption. And so we begin with this concept of creation, and that is on page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chokhma poteach sha'arim, ובתבונה משנה עיתים ומחליף את הזמנים, סודר את הכוכבים, משורותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons and arranges the stars in their heavenly course according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, ever-living God. May you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim. We also, of course, as we transition from our idea of creation, prepare ourselves for our revelation. Not yet, but momentarily we'll go into our revelation, and those are the words of the Shema. And so to prepare ourselves for that moment, we continue on page 33 at the bottom, and we'll alternate paragraphs. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us, and the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema 34:35.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed.
Ve'ahavta, page 36. Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. So our Baruch Hu got us into the motion of appreciating creation, revelation, redemption. We went through creation, we just completed our revelation, and now we move towards our redemption. And so we continue on page 39 at the top, and we read together, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught. Forever we stood at Sinai's foot. Together, join me. That wherever we go, there's eternally Egypt, there's a better place, a promised land. That the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. That there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Micha Mocha, page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות עושה פלא Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים זה אלינו אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד Who is like you Adonai, who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you?
The rabbis, in their wisdom, created a prayer for themselves so that they could feel comforted when evening started to fall upon them, not just on Shabbat, but every night of the week. An evening, by the way, that was not lit with street lamps and lights off of our cars and all kinds of electronics that light our way. These were dark times sometimes, and they were also literally dark areas where there was no light. And so they created these words to create this safety around them, this idea that they could bring upon and pray for this canopy of safety from God to keep them safe when they were traveling at night, or particularly when they lay down to go to sleep, that when we are at our most vulnerable at nighttime, or when we are going to sleep, that God's presence would be this canopy of shelter over all of us. And so we continue with that idea for all of us as well, this canopy of peace and love and safety that covers us in Hashkivenu on page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom lehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom lehamidenu shomreinu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom lehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom lehamidenu shomreinu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom lehamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
In a moment, we continue with the Amidah. The Amidah, for those of you, if we could do a little Friday night Shabbat quiz, has a couple of different names. Amidah has the name Amidah, I keep saying that, which means standing, because we're going to stand in a second. Not yet, but we're going to stand in a second. Another name for this prayer is on page 46. So what's that prayer called? Tefillah. Yes, good. Or the prayer. And then it often has a third name, which is the more difficult. What's that one? What's that one called? Yeah?
I heard it.
The Shmoneh Esrei. Yes, the Shmoneh Esrei, which means 18. 18, because there are how many parts to it? 19. Excellent. There are actually 19 parts. It's called the 18, even though there are 19 parts. One's added later. Except Shabbat is different. So the first three and the last three never change, but the middle one we change, because the middle ones that are the 13 in the middle are the ones that we do during the week, and they're petitionary, meaning we ask God of things. But on Shabbat, we don't ask God for anything, because it is Shabbat, and God gets to rest as well. And so as we stand in a moment to partake in the Amidah, and to pray the Amidah, and to chant and to sing the Amidah, I just ask that we all kind of reflect on that, not just the three important starting parts and the three important ending parts that connect all of us, but this idea that even God rests on Shabbat, and so we should find really distinct ways to distinguish between the rest of the week and Shabbat, so that we can create true wholeness and true rest on our own Sabbath. And so now we stand and continue with the Amidah, Tefillah, Shmoneh Esrei, whatever you'd like to call it, and that is on page 46.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei b'neihem, למען שמו ואהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We continue silently now, beginning here on page 52 through page 62. When you're finished, please be seated. We're on page 60.
Shalom Rama Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. 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 Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rama Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rama Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol heit v'chol sha'a bishlomecha. Shalom Rama Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rama Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
That's better. Okay. When we lived in Los Angeles years and years ago, my wife actually worked at a very large conservative synagogue called Temple Sinai. If you've ever been to Los Angeles, it's enormous. It's literally a city block. I mean, literally, it's humongous. And they have, I think, 5 or 6 levels of parking down below underneath the building. It is a massive structure. And it's really an incredible place. And what was nice is that once a month or so, they had something called Friday Night Live. They're the ones who originated this concept of having a special service on Friday night. We're having a Friday Night Live currently, but they had a Friday Night Live service with a band and all this other stuff, and it was particularly structured for younger people. I would say probably people from like 22 to 35, probably. I would say was the space they kind of were attracting the Friday Night Live to have these young people come, and it was packed. It was every seat was filled, and there is this joke that was about just when you prayed at Sinai Temple on Friday Night Live, that for those of you perhaps when you are praying the Shema, you'll cover your eyes a little bit to give you focus. And the joke at Sinai was that you would do this, because you'd be looking around for who's single and who's maybe attractive, and so you did your Shema like Shema Yisrael, Adonai. So there was this ongoing joke that you would like look through your fingers and examine what was happening out there, because it was all in that right age range, and everyone was single, and it was a fun evening. So people were kind of snooping on the person next to them, and trying to kind of gather who they were. And then there was also this beautiful concept that after the service was over, there was breakout groups, and there was food all over the building, and it was totally brilliant. And that's kind of when you got the dirt on people. That's kind of when you started to do a little chatting and talking, and to see if it was going to fit. And so I just wanted to take that concept for a second. Not that sort of nice, cute dating concept of the snooping, but more of like the snooping, kind of getting the dirt on someone, lashon hara concept. Just think about that for just a second as we enter into the conversation about our Torah portion, which is called Balak this week. It's in the book of Numbers, and Balak is a guy. He's named, the Torah portion is named after a guy, and Balak was not a fan of the Israelites. He lost to a couple of skirmishes with them in the desert, and he was not a fan of theirs, and he couldn't figure out how to defeat them, so he hired another guy named Bilam. So there's Balak, and now there's a guy named Bilam, who was kind of a sorcerer, and he thought, I'm going to pay this guy a bunch of money, and he's going to go and he's going to curse the Israelites because he's a sorcerer, and once they're cursed, I'll defeat them because they're going to be cursed. This is his idea. It's in this week's Torah portion, and there's this guy Bilam, and if you've seen, raise your hand if you've seen the movie Shrek. You seen the movie Shrek? Good. Okay. So some of you were really strained to get that hand up. It was really tough. You were like, I guess I'll just. He's talking to me, so I'll put the hand up as far as I can, but that was really difficult. That reach was huge. How many people have seen the movie Shrek? Oh, thank you. All right, good. So, as you know, in Shrek, there's a talking donkey in Shrek. Eddie Murphy is a talking donkey, and so the Torah portion actually has a talking donkey, because it really does. It's in the Torah. It's in this week's Torah portion, and Bilam is riding this donkey to go and curse the Israelites, and God, manifested in an angel, stops the forward motion of this donkey, and it doesn't move anymore. And Bilam is upset, and he starts to he hits the donkey over and over again, and he doesn't understand why it's not moving, and he's really hitting him hard, and at some point the donkey turns around and says, "Hey, stop," which of course freaks out Bilam, because he's a talking donkey, and that's literally in this piece of text, because he then ascends to overlook the Israelites, right? This was the whole point. He's given money to go and curse the Israelites, and so now he's there. He's on a cliff. He's looking down in this beautiful valley, and he notices tent after tent after tent after tent of the Israelites, and he thinks to himself, I got it. I'm going to curse them. It's perfect. But the donkey and the angel and this thing, and he's mishmashed, and he starts to notice something really special about the tents and how they're arranged. And he realizes that the tents, their entrances, are not facing each other. That the entrances are outside of each other, so that you can't see into each person's tent, he realizes. And it's through that moment and through that sort of thought, with the help of Rashi here, with the greatest commentator of all time, he helps us notice this. Bilam becomes sort of majestically mesmerized in a loving way with the Israelites, because he realizes that they set themselves up in a place where they're not looking at each other, like they're not up in each other's business, that there was something different about this group, that they would go this far to set their tents up in a way that would allow for their own privacy, rather than constantly be looking into someone else's life over and over and over again, and sticking their nose into other people's business. looking, seeking for maybe the Lashon Hara, the gossip, if you will. And he notices this, and so he gets up onto the mountain to curse the Israelites, and he lets out his curse, and instead of a curse, he says, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov. And he recites the words of Matovu, the blessing we say, the prayer we say every single morning. And so every single morning we actually bless ourselves with the blessing that Bilam tried to curse us with. But the idea that Rashi, the commentary says, is because it comes from the way he noticed the tents were sitting. They weren't doing this to one another. They closed their fingers. They were focused on themselves and not looking at what someone else was looking at. They weren't looking at their neighbors. And so I think that teaches us something, particularly in our world. Not that we've seen our neighbors that much in the last year, but in general, I'd say, let's not look at our neighbor's tent, and let's not look at them and decide how we're going to act. Why do we have to look at someone else and say, oh, you know what, now I'm going to act in a certain way because I see what my neighbor is doing? The decisions that we make should be based on what we want, not what our neighbors are doing. We don't have to be necessarily facing each other, knowing all the time, kind of up in each other's business. Let's not measure ourselves by other people's standards. Let's look into ourselves and not compare ourselves to others. We should focus on our own tents, not on our neighbors, and like I said, seek to close those fingers and not always have them open, looking and gossiping and trying to get the skinny on someone else and what's happening in their lives in comparison, comparing what we have or don't have, our material items, particularly to our neighbors. And so I invite all of us to have a wonderful Shabbat, not just perhaps of taking a moment to, after Shabbat, like on Saturday evening, of course, to maybe watch Shrek, if you'd like. But also a Shabbat of focus and a Shabbat of appreciation for what we have in our lives, in our own tents, and not what we're looking at other people's tents. Shabbat Shalom. We are going to think of those in our community who are in need of healing, physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. We, of course, think of the tragedy in Surfside of the tower that came down, and send all of our healing prayers to all of those families and all of the people connected to that atrocity, and send lots of hope that survivors can be found underneath that rubble. So of course we send those thoughts and prayers of healing to all of them. We also, of course, in our community here, think of Rabbi Henry Balser, Chava Leah Bat Esther, Gary Bandel, Dvorah, Kenny Benson, Natalie Burke, Matthew Burke, Robin Burke, Belle Bloom, Marshall Cohen, Karen Coles, Chuck Curry, Mark Davis, John Day, Jaden Deal, Anthony D. Giantomaso, Judith Dratler, Philip Dratler, Bobby Fitchman, Herbert Fitchman, Mark Fine, Janet Fortier, Paula Froh, Alan Gartner, T. Joshua, Modise Gavin, E. Greenberg, Curtis Grodin, M. Hassan, Ellen Hedrick, Larry Horn, Paulette Howard, Howard Isserlis, Stan Jacobson, Ira Kafka, Shirley Kafka, Myron Kahn, Gary Kane, Esther Rhoda Kaufman, Sarah Krifzer, Stuart Kruger, Gloria Land, Richard Levine, Rochelle Liebman, Robin Lopato Hest, Mikhail, Arnold Plotsky, Gloria Plotsky, David Roscoe, Ruth Raymond, Kathy Sebadou, David Baruch Ben Razel, Bobby Ross, Mark Rosenberg, Lexi Schlesinger, Mark Samuel, David Schwartz, Melissa Schaffner, Marcia Shapiro, Danielle Francis Shaw, Marcy Sherrill, Shmuel Ben Vita, Karen Silver, Robert Solomon, Diane Spiro, Frank Stadalis, Elisa Stavola, Ken Tankus, Claire Weiss, Barbara Werner, Tammy Werner, Vicky Wilson, Levi Yitzchak Ben Sura, Yehudit Margalit Bat Bluma, Susan Linder, and Michael Medoff. To those names, we had any name that you would like to add at this time. Mishberach can be found on page 253. Just want to make sure to announce that if you didn't see the email come out just before Shabbat, that we are going to be collecting donations for the Surfside community. And so that's went out tonight, and there'll be some more information coming out on Sunday also from our community. So just wanted to make sure that you knew that. And also that, of course, Torah study tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. That will be on Zoom. And you'll be talking more about talking donkeys, perhaps.
I won't be.
What's that?
I will be singing Matovu.
Right, you will be singing Matovu. So yeah, but perhaps talking about talking donkeys, which is always a nice thing to talk about. Talking donkeys, particularly if they have Eddie Murphy's voice. They get even more interesting if they become Eddie Murphy's voice. I don't know. Okay. We are going to continue now with Aleinu, which can be found on page 282, and together we stand.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We transition our thoughts now to Kaddish Tom, to Mourner's Kaddish. In the period of Shiva, we think of Barry Glick and Dr. Harold Grossman. And for our yahrzeits that occur for us on this Shabbat, Barry Beloff, Dennis Blyden, Jacob Kasten, Josephine Dreher, Minnie Iger, Teddy Feder, Albert Fuhring, Gilbert Gurman, Esther Hoffman, Marvin Katz, Erwin Kravitz, Ella Levine, Samuel Levine, Charlotte Lotker, Lillian Malley, Lillian Mayer, Ida Cohen, Neville, Julius Perlstein, Carol Peishos, Fred Richmond, Harold Richmond, Riva Rudensky, Beverly Rosenbluth, Abraham Silverstein, Rose Kawa Stern, May Tools, Miriam Udell, Florence Waters, William Weiss, Goldie Wolf. To those names, we add any name that you would like to add at this time. Mourner's Kaddish, Kaddish Atom, can be found on page 294. Yitkadal v'ikadash me'rabah, b'amad yivrach cheruteh v'amlich malchuteh, b'chayechon v'yomechon, ub'chayedechol beit Israel, b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabah mevorach, ve'olam u'mei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalar, shmei kodesha b'richu. לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, as together we say amen. We are, please be seated. We are going to close with Oseh Shalom. Isn't that right, Cantor?
That is correct.
All right, great.
Oseh Shalom, Shalom bimromav, Yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oseh Shalom, Shalom bimromav, Yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel. Amen, amen. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav. Uyase shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru
Adonai oz lamo yiten, Adonai v'rechet amo v'shalom. May God give strength unto our people. Continue to bless us with hope and strength and love and peace. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.